afternoon. Just a few short photos and commentary about the 2025 Peter Pig's AK47. This is the third edition of AK47. This one's going to be known as the People's Edition. There's the first edition. Second edition was called Reloaded. This is the People's Edition. Now, here's a bit of a game going on. Attacker defender. The attacker's home base edge is on the left, defender's on the right. At this part of the game, the attacker's given up his whole right wing, and this left wing of the defenders, the two tanks belong to the defenders, and the troops scuttling at the railway line defenders, and the troops in the buildings are also defenders as well. The piece of scenery in the middle with the rocky things, that's a gully, which means below the level of sight, so troops can sneak around a little bit. They can pop up here and there, but not effectively. The railway track is used as an option to road. But in the rules, railway track and road are treated exactly the same way. They're just a course from one place to the other. The big white explosions is a random event created by the rules called a sirocco. This is a quick dust storm. We've used these markers. Occupies 9 squares and diminishes and moves around the table. Anyway, that's photo number 1. Here's photo number 2. This is on the left flank of the attackers, and what you can see here is the river. Now the river is an option in the rules. Both players put in a number between 1 and 5. You add them up. Both players roll a dice, and if the total is equal to or less than what the river desire was, there is a river. And here is a river. It's made by Fat Frank. It does some lovely bits of scenery. It's a nice river. Now what you also see is the end of the sirocco moving off to the right. You've seen it before. There's a helicopter which has been brought down and it's got to stop for a moment because it's in the sirocco. The zebras on the left are the game countdown. You could write it on a bit of paper, but the game has a length of 36 points. So therefore there are 36 zebras. Each player gets to roll a dice at the end of their own turn. They re-roll if they like, and when 36 is reached, the game is over. Here's photo number 3, same as photo number 1, but a few more little bits to say. Each square, because it's a gridded game, you see small dots, small little crosses, little black ones. They denote where the corners of squares are. Squares can be any size, but for 15mm, the main scale size for AK47, we use 6-inch squares, nice and easy. That means the whole table is 5 foot by 3 foot, or 6 squares by 10 squares. There's plenty of manoeuvre space. The scenery templates, and there are 6 per player, they occupy 2 squares side by side. So on the left you see a solid building scenery template, on the right you see a solid building scenery template, at the bottom you can see part of a gentle hill template, and middle centre you can see a depression or gully template. And the templates are chosen by players, positioned by players, so both players take part in the game. It's not an alpha player game where the alpha player lays out the scenery, the scenario, the troops, rolls your dice for you and that sort of thing. On the top right is a jungle scenery piece. Here's a photo looking from the defender's base edge. The sirocco is still there. All these photos are taken in the same turn. Just get a general view of how the game works. There's loads and loads of bases in the foreground on the right. Those 2 squares just full of defender militia unit. There are 3 qualities of troops. There's militia, what you see here. There's regulars, middle level, and professionals, the top level. Most Western armies would be fully professional, but this is Africa. Now, because there's so many bases in these 2 squares on the right with the militia unit, when you shoot at them you can re-roll because they're crowded. 4 or more bases equals crowded. Now you can also see the men in the foreground on the right, their ordinary weapon bases. Ahead of them, I think I can see a bodyguard base with a big yellow tab, a general's base just going off screen, and the light blue one is a commander's base. AK47 is not a skirmish game, it is not 1-to-1. The bases you see on the right, on the light colour bases, that would constitute probably a battalion. So there's quite a lot of men. They're all very small battalion, maybe say 200 men, something like that. But anyway, they're not one-to-one. That means you don't need to worry about windows and stuff like that. In the distance, at the top of the photo, the two squares you can see are brimming with enemy militia coming forward as well. I don't know why this flank is militia on militia, but it is. Quite an interesting photo. This from the Defender's base edge. Here is a pair of technicals. Now, because it's not a skirmish game, each of these models represents about 4 or 5 vehicles. So that's probably about 9 technicals there. Therefore, there's no facing, there's no front armour, side armour, stuff like that. In AK47, the technical is quite good for the firepower, but hopeless with its saving rolls. Most things can kill it. But RPGs only have a range of 1 square. Therefore, if you stay back and shoot your machine guns from a distance, technicals can do better. Tanks and armoured cars will just kill them though. Vehicles in AK47 are bought as pairs. You buy a pair of tanks, a pair of technicals, a pair of field guns, etc. Because they represent 4 or 5 vehicles each, a pair of technicals is probably the technicals you'll get. You don't get to have 30, 40 technicals. These particular technicals, I've done them both in blue, just looks nice from the local dealership, I'm sure. In front of them are 2 templates of jungle by the look of it. The Sirocco can be seen in the distance through the trees. And the big marker to the front denotes the square as a partial square. So squares can either be completely open, partial, little marker in it, or closed with jungle or buildings. Still the same setup. Here's the right wing of the Defender's army, but seen more from above. We talked about the militia earlier on the far right. They've got a pinned result because the enemy shot at them and exchanged some hits for pins. You can pin people down as a good idea, stops them moving around, makes them less effective. However, pinning isn't a killer, it just stops people moving around a bit. Now the pin status affects the square. This game is played in squares, not individual bases doing different things. You see the whole mass of attacker militia at the upper part of the picture coming towards these buildings. Might be a bit bloody. There's the zebras in the background, and amongst the zebras, you can hardly see it, there's a couple of machine gun bases. Machine gun base and heavy weapons base are very slow to move. They cost double points, but they are effective at their particular task. Notice again the templates, they're indicative. So if you have a jungle template, it doesn't matter where the trees are, they're just models to make it look nice. So you move things around so it looks good. And also, because it's a proper gridded game, the bases in a square, you don't have to say where they are, they're just in the square. Therefore, you can be a general and not an NCO. The general's concerned with moving up the left flank. An NCO would be saying which base is where, can they see, can they shoot, stuff like that. You're a general in this game, and the game lasts about 2.5 hours. A few comments in closing. I'm speaking to you in June 2025. The rules should be out July, August, sometime 2025. It'd be a single book. All the armies are in the book. Everything you need is in the book. You only buy the one book. There are no supplements. You need 6-sided dice. You don't need a ruler, but you do want to grid a cloth. That's 6-inch markings, just like you see here, on a 6x4. This particular cloth is very nice. It's by Geek Villain, who does some really nice cloths. Very nice indeed. The game would suit 2 players a side. More than 2 players a side, it gets a bit crowded and slows down a lot. Anyway, that's AK47 People's Edition, forthcoming. And this particular game, the Defenders won because they took out the left wing, as you saw in the very first photo. And the scenery ownership is just as important as the killing. So Defenders held all the left-hand side of the table, which gave them a huge bonus. The attackers did eventually take the building at the bottom right, which is the factory, which is the defending player's specialist scenery piece he's allowed to bring with him. But it didn't quite get enough to win the game. It was a good game though. That's Big Mike versus Martin.